So a couple of weeks ago, I made my very own original what if video about a tournament of power that's set to take place 4 years after the previous one. Naturally, Goku and Vegeta have gotten significantly more powerful than they are right now. Black Frieza had a big scuffle with Beerus, but then he became a formal intern at Planet Beerus, pretty much like Toppo in Universe 11. He always gives off this sketchy aura, which is why Beerus always kinda kept an eye on him. His current goal is to become a destroyer. It doesn't really matter which universe. All Frieza wants is that official universal authority. Broly, on the other hand, has been practicing the art of mental fortitude under the guidance of a mystic. Of course, it isn't only Universe 7 that's gotten stronger, however. Same is the case with the other universes, including the 4 which didn't participate in the previous Tournament of Power. In fact, pretty bizarre turns of events happen at Universes 1 and 12. A rogue assassin killed the Supreme Kai of Universe 1 and effectively takes out their destroyer as well. In Universe 12, however, a dangerous individual shows up and simply kills off the destroyer himself. Note that as it stands, Universes 1 and 12 are supposedly the 2 supreme universes, but in reaction to this, Frieza asked Beerus to recommend him as the new destroyer of one of these universes, but Beerus just kinda shrugs it off, like how he also doesn't care about those destroyers getting offed either. Meanwhile, the 2 other universes that we're still most familiar with, Universes 6 and 11, have had their own respective growths. King Sadala's son, a young Saiyan named Prince Sadala, of course, managed to turn into a Super Saiyan 4. Prince Sadala had heard stories about the Super Saiyan God from Kabe, and so he boldly declares that he is the Super Saiyan God of this universe, even though Kabe patiently tries to explain to him that this form seems much different from what he knows. Prince Sadala would state that unless he's as strong as Prince Vegeta by the time he meets him, it'll be a disgrace to planet Sadala. And then we would move on to Universe 11 and Jiren. He had finally managed to kill the evil being who had took the life of his master. He then recalls Goku's invitation to come to Universe 7 and use their Dragon Balls if he ever wants to revive his master, so he decides to follow through with it and comes all the way to Earth. They would go on to bring back his master Gishin, an old warrior who also used to be friends with the destroyer of Universe 11. And conveniently, any day now, the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament was about to happen. Goku would try to talk Jiren into joining, and it works. And just like that, Jiren is one of the participants of the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament. And for the sake of context, this is also the tournament in which both Pan and Oob joined, so end of Z if that makes it easier. Goku would go on to fight Oob as it is in the actual story, and then he would go on to fight Jiren. However, since it was decided beforehand to not use their ki or transformations, Jiren manages to outsmart Goku in the ring. He does the same when he faces off against Vegeta in the finals. After the tournament concludes, Jiren and his master would bid a farewell to the Z Fighters, and in his final words, he states that he has a feeling they'll meet again very soon. Now, the 28th World Martial Arts Tournament takes place 3.5 years after the Tournament of Power, so there are only a few months left until the next Tournament of Power, but upon exclusive orders from the Grand Priest, all of the angels of their respective universes are forbidden from disclosing this event to anyone, not even their destroyers. And just like that, there is only a week left until the second Tournament of Power. This time, the Grand Priest gathers the angels, the destroyers, and the Supreme Kais of all universes, except of course Universes 1 and 12, which nobody is really told what's going on there for now. The Grand Priest would then boldly declare the happening of the second Tournament of Power exactly 7 days from now. He explains that all 12 universes will participate this time, however things will be kept real this time around. There won't be any time limit and no other kind of elimination. The only way to win is by making sure that any and all warriors of the other universes are dead. And they will never be brought back to life either. Furthermore, the destroyers and the Supreme Kais of the universes who rank in the last 4 seeds will also be eliminated for good. And that is where episode 1 of our Dragon Ball Super Tournament of Power 2 would have ended. I know the rules were controversial, and so for the rest of this video, I'll first explain my reasoning behind those rules, and then we'll talk about what could actually happen if the Dragon Ball manga decided to do yet another tournament like the TOP. Starting off with the rules, the most striking part about them, of course, isn't the idea that it's going to be a fight to the death team battle royale. No, it's the inclusion that those who die will never be brought back to life. Add that with the fact that the Tournament of Power will become a regular event that takes place every 4 years, and things start looking pretty grim for pretty much everyone. However, these rules are just a prerequisite to the actual premise of the second Tournament of Power. It's really just a way to create an abrupt sense of danger for all of the universes at once. Except this time, and I think a lot of people probably overlooked this in the last video, it's not the universes themselves that'll be in danger of getting wiped out like the previous Tournament of Power. Instead, this time the consequences will only be limited to those who got involved with the tournament, the Destroyers, the Supreme Kais, and the Warriors, which will create a different kind of friction, especially now that there's this brotherhood between Goku and Jiren, as well as Vegeta and the Saiyans from Universe 6. Moving on, there's also what had happened in Universes 1 and 12, how both universes lost their Destroyers one way or another. Then the good old Frieza has been under Beerus's wing for more than 2.5 years now, so just think about how much stronger he must have gotten. Not to mention his undisclosed plan of ultimately taking over as supreme authority of all universes in due time. And we have a recipe for absolute disaster in this tournament now, and I'm loving it. I remember way back in the day Whis mentioning that the Grand Priest is like top 5 strongest fighters of all universes. So even if we did want to headcanon him as top 1 somehow, there are still 4 others who are at least in the same tier. We didn't get to see any of them in the previous Tournament of Power because the top 4 universes didn't participate, but this time they will. On a tournament of this level and with conditions this sinister, things could get ugly, and considering the nature of Goku, he may very well confront the Grand Priest to try to bend the rules. The Grand Priest will probably be brought into the arena one way or another, and in the end, it'll be a battle to decide the strongest known warrior among all 12 universes. I'm sure Frieza isn't the only one who's had his eyes on that top seed either, so even though it starts off as a tournament with such harsh rules, in the canon Dragon Ball storyline, things never go according to the initial plan. So what do you guys think? Which kind of Tournament of Power would be more interesting for Zeno, or I guess the Zeno twins? Just the Warriors or also the Destroyers? What about the Grand Priest? Well, in the end, it is all just a what if scenario, so how about now we try and see what an actual second Tournament of Power could look like? The Saiyans from Universe 6 are definitely getting some kind of unique transformation, and I mean, even if there is no saga quite like the Tournament of Power ever again, we would almost certainly get a new transformation for those guys over there. So absolutely no way are we gonna see those 3 again, and they don't have at least something to show for the past 4 years. Similarly, all other universes would get stronger in their own rights. By this time, Toppo may or may not have become the new destroyer of his universe, but I don't know. The manga has made it abundantly clear time and time again that the Destroyers are just on a completely different level than everyone, and in my honest opinion, it would probably take a little bit more than 4 years for Toppo to get there. Jiren, on the other hand, would defeat that evil being at some point and avenge his master's death. He's also stated that the reason he participated in this Tournament of Power is because he wishes to resurrect his masters, so that's definitely a plot line the manga can expand upon in the future. This wasn't revealed in the anime though, but if we really wanted to get into it, the Tournament of Power as a whole is much different in the anime compared to what's in the manga. I don't really know why there's so often a disconnect between the anime and the manga. Like, for example, when Whis tells Goku the Grand Priest has one of the top 5 highest battle powers in all universes, that part was only in the anime. Meanwhile, in the manga, he was stated to be the strongest, and just that. This is why it's pretty hard to speculate about the other 4 strongest, unless it's a what if, of course. I'd like to think that there was proper thought put into it when they changed the statement in the anime, otherwise, just why would they do that? It doesn't really make sense to change this much unless the author is also involved. Still, there is one individual that we can talk about though, and that person is the creator of the Super Dragon Balls. Then there's also the mystery about how the Namekians moved from another realm. Connect this together and you'd begin to wonder if the Namekians are the direct descendants of Zalama, and he's still in a different realm altogether right now. If the Grand Priest is indeed top 5 of all universes, then Zalama, without question, would have to be among that top 5 as well. I for sure hope the manga brings Zalama into the story at some point, because learning about the creator of Super Shenron seems like an entire arc of its own. He could also just be an old legend like Yamoshi, and maybe Piccolo could also create a stronger dragon than the ones we currently have in Universe 7 right now. Anyways, if Zalama is in a different realm right now, then he's not a part of the 12 universes, and so we can't expect him to show up in the Tournament of Power. However, this is what's crazy about Dragon Ball Super. The scale of the world building is practically insane. It's actually on steroids. A second Tournament of Power will definitely have unprecedented developments, even if Zalama isn't included. We can't exclude Frieza as a primary driving force either. Right now in the story, he's just whipped out a new form, and depending on how the next saga takes place, our boy is definitely going to be going some places. All of this could really make you begin to wonder if Dragon Ball Super is ever truly gonna end. Who will be the final antagonist? It didn't end after the Tournament of Power, which in my opinion was probably a good place to end, but since it didn't, the story won't show any signs of stopping anytime soon probably. Goku and Vegeta will eventually surpass Beerus and maybe Whis, and if they do, I think it's gonna be pretty definitive. That would probably be another good place to finish off the series, but that'd probably be a little bit too anticlimactic. I mean, we already know that at some point, if things keep going like this, Goku and Vegeta are going to surpass them. So for now, what's next? How about a tournament where only the 10 strongest fighters in the whole multiverse are invited, and call it the Grand or Zeno's Invitational or something like that? At first, Goku and Vegeta barely make the cutoff. They're like numbers 7 and 8, but by the end of it, our boys are the 2 strongest mortals of all 12 universes. Exciting possibilities left and right, and this is why I don't know if Dragon Ball Super is ever gonna end. But then what if Broly is in the top 10 as well? What about Jiren? There's definitely some kind of sensible end goal that Toyotaro and Toriyama have in their minds, some definitive conclusion for this entire series, right? Or maybe not. I mean, if we're talking about definitive conclusions, then the story may very well have ended after the Frieza arc if it weren't for the insane popularity and demand. But going back to the second Tournament of Power, I think doing it the exact same way as before would be much too plain, even with all of the developments and power-ups. But as we know, if it were to happen, Dragon Ball loves their tournaments, and another tournament is more likely to be a one-on-one instead of a battle royale probably as well. The storyline could start off by hyping up the strongest warriors from each universe and then taking things from there, but imagine that it's just 2 slots per universe and Broly beats Vegeta for it. That would be pretty sick, I think. And I guess if it's a one-on-one and there's a limit to how many people can participate from each universe, then each universe would have to start holding like preliminary rounds, because that's probably the easiest way to do it. For what it's worth, if I was Beerus, Universe 7 would be walking in there with like Broly and Vegeta and just call it a day. I mean, they did like kinda sneak in Frieza last time, so why not? But let's be honest, this is Dragon Ball, so at the end of the day, Goku will be the one shining the brightest as always, and if we're lucky, Vegeta will be right there by his side as Universe 7 takes home another Tournament of Power title.